clinch it in overtime. Brady can chop, breakaway shoots, scores!
Welcome to Sens Talk. My name is Brandon and I am your host. For today's video, I want to take a look at the managerial positions right now for the Ottawa Senators and who might be added and who might be subtracted from that managerial positions currently. Because look, with a new owner coming in, of course there's going to be some changes. We've already seen some changes, which we'll talk about in just a couple minutes from now. But with a new owner coming in, of course they're going to want to provide their own perspective, their own view, their own voice. They want to bring their own people into the organization, which only makes sense. Now, of course, Michael Andlauer hasn't officially been brought in as the next owner of the Ottawa Senators. That's expected to be formalized officially here in the month of August with a Board of Governors meeting and a vote after that. So, it's basically official, but it's not official. But the writing is on the wall. And because of that, we've already seen some resignations. We've seen some firings. So there's absolutely been quite a bit of movement in the Ottawa Senator business side of things and managerial side of things so far this offseason. Obviously, more movement has been seen in the managerial and business side of things as of late, especially compared to normal. Obviously, with the new owner being brought in. So we've seen some very key figures removed and or resigning from their positions. So I want to break that down, and then we'll talk about some potential replacements and additions that might be brought in here in the next year or so. I also want to mention at the beginning of this video that I'm not going to really discuss Pierre Dorion and Ryan Bowness. There's been no indication, especially with some of the moves we've done in this free agency period, that either are going to be fired anytime soon. The possibility absolutely does exist, and we'll talk about that in the later part of the video. But I don't think Pierre Dorion's going anywhere, at least for the next year. Of course, look, if the Sens don't make the playoffs next year, he's gone. But for Ryan Bowness specifically, he was just brought in a couple years ago. I can't see him being removed anytime soon. But I just wanted to mention that because realistically, the rest of this video is going to take a look at what we know right now and what's happened so far. So let's get into it. The first resignation I want to take a look at is a massive one. It came about a month ago as Anthony LeBlanc resigned effective immediately from his post as President of Business Operations, as he held that position since April of 2020. So that's a massive one right there. Your President of Business Operations is a key figure in your business side of things. But with a new owner being brought in, it makes sense that the old President of Business Operations is leaving, because obviously the new owner has a different perspective on things, will probably want a different voice, and will obviously want to bring in their own person for that role. So it's clearly a mutual decision here, which is why it's a graceful exit. Anthony LeBlanc gets to leave on his own terms. There's no drama involved here. It's a mutual decision. And in Bruce Garriock's report about this, resignation, LeBlanc said, and I quote, "He left on good terms," which is great to see, because once again, it's a graceful exit, but the writing was on the wall. With a new owner coming in, he's going to want to have a different perspective on the business side of things, and of course, that means LeBlanc would likely have been fired. So by resigning, LeBlanc gets to leave on his own terms, and he sheds the label of being fired from the organization, which of course, I don't think the organization personally wanted to do, because he did a lot of great things here in Ottawa during his short stint over the last 3 years. But with a new owner being brought in, it just makes the most sense to have a change of position there. As well, Anthony LeBlanc's wife lives in Phoenix, so, with Andlauer being brought in, his family in Phoenix, where he used to be part owner of the Phoenix Coyotes, now the Arizona Coyotes, it makes sense he wants to go back to Arizona. So good for him. I wish him the best of luck, because once again, he did a lot of good things here in Ottawa during one of the most tumultuous and unstable times in Senator franchise history. Every single season after being brought in as the President of Business Operations, the season tickets and just walk-up and general attendance went up. It increased every single year under Anthony LeBlanc. He provided stability during the most unstable time in recent Senator history. We got to commend him for that, because once again, remember, take yourself back to like 2019, 2020. It was a crazy time to be a Senator fan. There was far too much drama here in the nation's capital. Anthony LeBlanc was a big, big part of settling things down. So congratulations to him for a fantastic few years here. I wish him the best of luck in Arizona. I'm sure we'll see him, somewhere in the private market or back in the NHL sooner rather than later. As well, Tom Hoof, somebody that was also hired at the same time as Anthony LeBlanc, resigned effective immediately around the same time as Anthony LeBlanc. He was the former director of marketing of the Ottawa Senators. He was hired in 2020 as well, like I just mentioned. That one, just like Anthony LeBlanc resigning, is not shocking whatsoever. Of course, once again, with the new owner being brought in, he's going to want a different perspective on things, a different voice, his own people there. That's why Hoof and, of course, Anthony LeBlanc have resigned. I wish them both the best of luck, though. They really, during a tumultuous time in Senator history, had a tough task at hand. So, I wish them the best. Good job for what you did. And, of course, it's nothing personal. This is just business. Now, speaking of it being not personal, that's where that ends. This firing here, in my opinion, was very personal, and the statement, which we'll talk about in a second, that Pierre Dorion put out for this firing makes it very evident that this was a very personal decision, and there's a lot of hard feelings involved in the situation. I'm, of course, talking about former assistant general manager Trent Mann, who was fired a couple of weeks ago after heading the amateur scouting staff since 2016, has been a part of the organization, the Ottawa Senator organization, since 2011 as an amateur scout, was the Senator assistant general manager for just over a year. He was fired. This, if you told me a year ago, would have been absolutely shocking, but when it was announced a couple of weeks ago, it was absolutely not shocking, and that is purely because of his brother Troy Mann's firing last season during the season in the AHL. Now, I say it like that because in the AHL, there's only been one other coach in the last decade to be fired mid-season, okay? So it never happens in the AHL. So when Troy Mann, Trent Mann's brother, former AHL coach of the Belleville Senators, was fired, that raised a lot of questions. It's not shocking to see Trent Mann, his brother, be fired as well less than a year later, of course, especially under the circumstances of Troy Mann's dismissal, because, we all know the report around Troy Mann from Claire Hanna saying that he sent or, gave scouting material to another NHL team. That's a very sticky situation, which I'll get into in one sec. But there's absolutely a lot of layers to this. There's a lot more that's happened that we don't know behind the scenes. And I want to caution that Claire Hanna report and other things I'm going to discuss in this little segment here, nothing's really been confirmed. This is all rumors. This is all just reports. So we'll have to see what happens in the next year or so. And we'll talk about that too, because their contracts will be ending and their NDAs will be expiring. So there's a lot of things that are going to happen in the next little bit here. But I want to get back to Trent Mann itself, because there's a split opinion on him. And some people on Twitter were shocked that he was fired. They thought he was just fired because of his brother Troy Mann and what happened with him and the rumors and drama around that. There's also another side of the coin that says that, hey, look, Trent Mann, his draft record is solid at times, but at other times, it's not that solid. He has a lot of misses, and while he has some hits, of course, like Jake Sanderson, Tim Stützle, Shane Pinto, the list goes on, he has some misses as well. There's some drafts where, frankly, there's not going to be one player in the draft that makes it to the NHL, and that's in the last few drafts. So for Trent Mann, there's a really split, opinion on him. I think he's done a great job here in Ottawa in terms of bringing in some good prospects. He's always had a great scouting eye. He's always been a valuable member to a very thin management group here in Ottawa. And of course, his loss will be felt in the amateur side of things. That being said, like I just said, there's been some very big swing and misses in the drafts as of late. Some prospects have not panned out, haven't even sniffed professional or NHL hockey. And because of that, with Trent Mann, you can absolutely make the case anyways for Trent Mann to be fired or dismissed of his duties. And I mention all of that because, look, for Trent Mann, there's no legal case whatsoever. The Ottawa Senators dismissed him, and they can just justify it by saying he didn't perform up to their standards. Just like anyone else in the organization, if they feel that that person isn't living up to the role they're being brought in for, and they're not performing at the top level that they need them to, of course they can let them go. This is professional sports. But that's a different story with Troy Mann, which we'll talk about in a second. You can make the case for defamation there. And I mention all this with Trent Mann purely because the statement that Pierre Dorion put out when it was announced that Trent Mann was fired, and by the way, it took the Senators a few days. It was reported that Trent Mann was fired. We heard nothing for a week, and then the Sens officially made it official in a press release, which, by the way, the official Ottawa Senator organization Twitter account, @Senators, never retweeted it, never tweeted it. It was only @media_Sens, the Sens communications account, that put out this press release. So that's another thing that was oh, that's really interesting right there. They're kind of trying to bury it, in my opinion, with doing something like that, because why else? When have you ever seen the Sens put out a press release and they haven't put it on, of course, the main Twitter feed? So that was kind of a red flag to me, but the statement itself makes it very clear that he wasn't fired for performance issues. It was clearly something else, because it was a one-line statement for a guy that's been in the organization for over a decade. And Pierre Dorion is a guy that really likes to, praise people that have been in the organization for quite some time. He's a very, lighthearted guy from what we've seen anyways, Pierre Dorion is. So this statement was very out of character for him. He usually says more than he should, not less. And here he said, and I quote, "We're thankful for Trent's contributions to the Sounders and wish him the best going forward." And that's it. And that to me shows there's definitely a bit of turmoil between the Sens organization, specifically Pierre Dorion, and of course Trent Mann and the Mann family itself. Because once again, this guy's been a part of the organization for over a decade. He's been praised in the past by Pierre Dorion as the type of guy that the Sens organization, needs. He's been a strong asset for them, according to Pierre Dorion, in the past. So it's not shocking over the last year with the Troy Mann revelation. That's, still alleged. And of course, Trent Mann now being fired. There's clearly some anguish between the two sides here. And once again, I mentioned all of this because with Troy Mann, and I mentioned this already, there's been no confirmation that he did, in fact, provide scouting material to another NHL team. But we do know, as been reported and rumored out there on Twitter, is Troy Mann has looked at potentially coaching again in the AHL. He approached the San Diego Gulls, the Anaheim Ducks AHL affiliate, and the Gulls, according to a rumor, did not hire Troy Mann because of that Claire Hanna report of the scouting info being moved to another NHL team. So clearly, if this report is not true from Claire Hanna, this is defamation. It's ruining Troy Mann's, employment, his career. He doesn't have any employment opportunities right now because of this allegation. And I would be shocked if by next offseason, when Trent and Troy Mann's contracts expire, which means their NDAs also expire, they don't, one, make a public statement, and two, pursue legal action. Now, once again, Trent Mann can't do anything legally speaking. He was dismissed, and there's no wrongful dismissal in that dismissal, because once again, the Sens have the right to fire him if they feel he didn't perform up to their satisfaction. But with Troy Mann, specifically with the allegation of him sharing scouting material to another NHL team, Troy Mann could sue Claire Hanna for defamation because, once again, if the Gulls, for example, if that report or rumor is true, did not hire him because of that report from Claire Hanna, this is stopping him from getting employment. It's stopping him from, putting food on the table, having a career. Of course, Troy Mann is going to pursue legal action if this is not true. Now, of course, if Claire Hanna's report is true, Troy Mann is screwed. He's never going to coach in the AHL and the NHL anywhere ever again. But if it's not true, and I don't know if it is or isn't, this report from Claire Hanna, he will absolutely take legal action. I would be absolutely shocked. Because once again, this is this guy's career. You're telling me if there's a report out there that's stopping him from getting employment opportunities is not true, he's not going to do something about it, you're foolish. Of course he will. So we'll see what happens. But I would be shocked, mark my words, I would be shocked if something doesn't happen in the next year or so from the Mann family. I would be absolutely shocked if, at the very least, Troy Mann doesn't speak out publicly against what happened. So we'll see what happens, but that's all assuming, of course, that the situation with Troy Mann is false. If it's true, we'll never hear from Troy Mann again. So we'll have to see what happens, but it's really unfortunate to see how this, I guess you can call it, relationship between the Mann family and the Sens organization has ended, because once again, Trent Mann has been with the Sens organization forever, and Troy Mann, he helped develop some of our top prospects into NHLers. He put the Belleville Sounders into the playoffs for the first time in franchise history. It's just a shame what happened here. So I really look forward to the next year or so, kind of seeing what happened truly behind the scenes as more information comes out, because right now it's really peculiar, it's really interesting, and in the worst way possible. So we'll see what happens with that, but yeah, once again, Trent Mann, I wish him nothing but the best. I loved what he did here in Ottawa for the most part, especially with a bare bone organization. Ottawa has only like a few amateur scouts and, pro scouts. So when I say bare bones, I really mean it. The Sens organization is a bare bones managerial side of things. So, Trent Mann really did the best he could. So I wish him, of course, nothing but the best. He's brought in some of our best players as well. And to Troy Mann, I guess, look, we'll see what happens with him. If that report is true and he shared, scouting material to another NHL team, you just can't do that, of course. But if he didn't do it, I hope he gets justice, because once again, if there's a rumor out there about the guy and he didn't do what the rumor says he did, and is, nulling him from getting employment opportunities, that just sucks. So if not true, I wish him the best, and I hope he can, rectify that wrong. But once again, if he really did do that, That's what you get for doing something so stupid. Now, moving on from that, because I really went in on the Mann family there and that whole situation, because there's just so much complexity there, because Trent Mann was with the organization for so long. It just, all this just doesn't make sense. It's all so sudden, and there's definitely more to come around the situation. Now, I want to finish off the video with this. Who might be brought in to the Senator organization with all these exits? Well, firstly, Cyril Leader might be brought in, and he played a key role in the Sens hockey operations between the franchise's inception in 1992 to 2017 after he was let go by the late Eugene Melnyk. Now, Bruce Garriock, in a report a couple weeks ago, noted that Cyril Leader may be brought back as the new president of business operations to replace Anthony LeBlanc, and this would be great news if so. Nobody knows. I mean, nobody knows the Ottawa Senators and the city of Ottawa like Cyril Leader. This would be a massive addition to the Sens hockey operations side of things. On the business side, on the hockey side, this would just be a great addition. Leader should never have been fired to begin with. This guy was instrumental in, of course, the LeBreton Flats bid as well. He knows this city, he knows his franchise, and this would be a type of guy I'd love to bring back to the Sens organization. He'd be a key asset for Michael Andlauer as well, for the business side of things, to kind of figure out the landscape here in Ottawa, and I really hope he's brought back, because once again, this guy was here from the beginning of the franchise, and he's seen this franchise at his highest moments, at his best moments, and he knows what it takes to bring them back to those moments. So Cyril Leader is the type of guy I'd love to bring. Another guy I'd absolutely love to bring, if you couldn't tell, big Alfredsson fan, Daniel Alfredsson. I would be all over this. I would love if Daniel Alfredsson was brought into the Sens organization. Frankly, it's so weird. It's so weird that Daniel Alfredsson isn't officially part of the Sens organization. But last year, we saw him in the building way more often than the last few years alone. He's dropped the puck before. He's sat in the 400s before. He clearly wants to be back with the Sens organization. He's already expressed that interest, and, by expressing that interest to join the Ottawa Senators again, that really puts fuel on the flames. He puts fuel on the fire and really makes a lot of us, including myself, believe a reunion between the Sens organization and Daniel Alfredsson is on the brink. And look, Bruce Garriock has mentioned that the club may like him, Daniel Alfredsson, in an advisory or development, player development type of role. And let's not forget that he was a senior advisor to Brian Murray back in 2017. Or in 2016, pardon me. So he has experience with that. So I don't know if he would want to do more or would just want to be back as a senior advisor kind of thing. But maybe he's brought in as an assistant general manager. I don't know. So I'm not sure if Alfie would want to be back in that role, in something more, in something less. I frankly do not give a damn. As long as Daniel Alfredsson is officially part of the Senator organization, I'm sleeping well at night and I am happy. So whatever it takes, bring him back to the nation's capital. Bring him back to the Sens organization. He desperately should be a part of this organization. Frankly, let's put a damn statue of Daniel Alfredsson in front of the CTC. It's about time for that. This guy is an absolute legend, and he should absolutely be part of the Sens organization. No ifs or buts about it. Now, Steve Staios is somebody that's very interesting and is somebody that might be rumored to be brought in soon as an assistant general manager or a potential general manager here in Ottawa, as he has a big-time connection with Michael Andlauer. He was the former general manager of the Hamilton Bulldogs. They won a championship together, of course, as Andlauer owns the Hamilton Bulldogs. So, of course, there's that natural connection there. There's that trust as well and that business relationship. So I would be shocked if Steve Staios isn't brought in sooner rather than later to the Sens organization. Now, that doesn't mean Pierre Dorion's going to be fired. That doesn't mean Ryan Bowness, who I absolutely don't think is going anywhere anytime soon, will be fired as well. That only means that Steve Staios will be brought in if Pierre Dorion's fired, of course, which I can't see happening in the next year or so, or as well brought in as an assistant general manager, because we have obviously now a vacancy in that position. Steve Staios is an interesting person. He's been coveted by a lot of NHL teams, but he has a good hockey resume as well. Championship resume. Would never hurt to bring him in, especially as assistant general manager, because once again, Ottawa has one of the smallest front offices in the National Hockey League, and only got smaller with some of the moves we've discussed today. So bringing him in would be great for the Sens organization, and just the depth, I guess you can call it, in the managerial side of things. But besides that, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Who's going to be brought in? Is Cyril Leader going to be brought in? Is Alfie going to be brought in? What do you think about the Trent Mann and Troy Mann saga? What do you think about LeBlanc resigning? What do you think? Is Pierre Dorion going to be fired soon? Or Ryan Bowness? Let me know all your thoughts, of course, down below in the comment section as usual. I look forward to reading and responding to every single comment. And besides that, thank you all for watching. I will see you all very, very soon. Go Sens, go.